You may have come across something known as the logical problem of the Qur'an. It runs roughly like this. Hafs is the Qur'an, Warsh is the Qur'an, but Hafs and Warsh are not identical. Therefore, so the argument goes, there are two Qur'ans. It sounds like clean logic, but it's actually a category error. It doesn't take an expert either to figure it out. It takes about a minute. I'm going to take you through a quick analogy to show you why this argument commits this category error. Suppose I issue one ruling, do not steal, and I authorize that ruling to be delivered in several fixed forms, each of them from me. You are forbidden to steal. Theft is impermissible for you. You are under an obligation to abstain from taking what is not yours. The unlawful taking of others' property is prohibited for you. These are several sentences. They are not identical word for word. One is blunt, one is legal, one frames it as a moral duty. A couple of them carry multiple shades of meaning. But no reasonable listener would ever conclude that I have issued 5 different rulings, or that there are now 5 prohibitions on theft. There is one ruling from one speaker in several authorized forms, each of them coined by me and authorized to be passed on. To receive any one of these rulings is to receive all of the rulings, not a fragment or a rival. Now, one slight refinement to make these 5 rulings tighter. Having issued those 5 rulings in those forms, suppose I now fix it in a single wording, the one I first gave, and make that the standard. All the other forms fall away. From here, the ruling travels in that one wording. But a fixed wording does not fix everything, because the same written words are not always said the same way. An Englishman says schedule, an American says schedule. The word either is either or either. One word can be voiced in multiple ways, and the voicing is not open. It only counts as an authorized voicing if it's one that I have taught. These taught text-bound voicings are not rival rulings. Each still carries the whole ruling. Fixing the wording narrows the variation. It does not widen it. That is the Qur'an. That is its readings. Hafs and Warsh. Hafs and Warsh are not 2 Qur'ans. They are authorized ways of reciting one Qur'an from one source. When we say Hafs is the Qur'an, the word is does not mean is numerically identical to Warsh. It means is a complete authorized reading of the Qur'an. The whole logical problem of the Qur'an depends on swapping those 2 senses of is. If you call out that swap, the entire problem dissolves. This is only a logical analogy, not a theological one. The Qur'an's wordings, the Qira'at, are revealed to the letter, a human approximation of a divine idea. The point is only this: authorized forms can express one source without being identical to one another. And if anything, the analogy understates the case. The real readings are tighter still, as we will now see. 3 words carry this discussion, and when these 3 words are understood properly, this whole argument falls apart. The first is the Qur'an. So what is the Qur'an? The Qur'an is Kalamullah, the uncreated speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From Him it began, and to Him it will return. It is bil harf was sawt, in letters and sound, in a manner that is befitting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without any resemblance to the speech of creation. It was revealed upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and then in the sitting with Jibreel alayhi salam, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam finalized what would be the Qur'an. Then after this, Uthman radiyallahu an compiled the Qur'an upon one harf, which was the harf of Quraysh. And then he created what was the canonical text, the Rasm of the Qur'an. And this becomes the Qur'an in the Mus'haf we have today. The Qur'an itself exists in the hearts of the believers. It exists in the Masahif, and it is preserved in the Lawh Mahfuz, the preserved tablet. The second word is Ahruf, harf. The Ahruf are the 7 divinely revealed and authorized modes of the Qur'an. They were revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a ruqsa, a dispensation, to accommodate and ease recitation across the different tongues amongst the Arab tribes, accommodating the different dialects. Each of these 7 ahruf are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Scholars have mentioned and outlined that within the 7 ahruf, sometimes there were differences in wording, choice, and even the placement and order of words. But each of the ahruf were affirmed by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is 7 modes, 1 speech, and 1 origin. Now, the final word which we need to discuss are the Qira'at. The Qira'at are the readings which are possible based upon the Uthmanic Rasm, the skeletal text. After Uthman radiallahu an compiled the Qur'an upon a single harf, the harf of Quraysh. So, what I mean by this is the text of the Qur'an did not contain any tashkil or dots. So if you imagine the shape of a ba, it could have a dot at the bottom, it could have a dot at the top, or it could have 3 dots at the top. So it could bear 3 possible letters. This was the skeletal text of the Qur'an, the Uthmanic Rasm. The Qira'at are whatever remains of the original ahruf which can be placed on top of the skeletal text. Each of the Qira'at are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and affirmed and authorized by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in relation to the Uthmanic text. With these 3 words clarified, we barely need to go any deeper into the discussion. With these 3 definitions, we can already see the logical problem of the Qur'an falling apart. Keep the 3 apart and the argument barely needs defending. One Qur'an revealed in several modes, the ahruf recited today through modes of recitation bound to a single written text. The Qira'at, one source, many authorized modes. That is the hinge of everything that follows. Now set that definition against the argument and the equivocation surfaces. It lives in one small word, is. When we say Hafs is the Qur'an, we are not claiming that Hafs is identical vowel for vowel with Warsh. What we are saying is that Hafs is an authorized mode of reciting the one revealed speech. This is the is of instantiation, is a genuine instance of, not the is of identity, is the very same thing as. Watch the 2 premises. Hafs is the Qur'an, true in the instantiation sense. Warsh is the Qur'an, true in the instantiation sense. But the conclusion of the logical problem of the Qur'an needs, therefore, Hafs and Warsh are identical. However, since the 2 are not, they try to claim there are 2 Qur'ans. This only follows if the is we're talking about suddenly shifts to mean identity. From Hafs is an authorized mode of recitation and Warsh is an authorized mode of recitation. Nothing forces Hafs to equal Warsh in the identity sense, any more than my sentences forbidding theft have to be the same sentence. The inference never runs. So why are there differences at all in the Qira'at? The definitions I gave in the beginning give the bare bones, but here's the history. The 7 ahruf began as a concession, a ruqsa, easing recitation across the tongues of the Arabs. In the final review with Jibreel, the retained recitation was confirmed. Then under Uthman, the community was gathered upon one standard written text, the Uthmanic Rasm, the bare consonantal skeleton, without dots or vowel marks, set down according to the harf of Quraysh, the tongue in which the revelation first came. All that remains is what the skeletal text can carry of the original modes, only what the written form allows. So the canonical Qira'at are not the whole of the 7 ahruf.
Ibn al-Jazari and several other scholars state the canonical qira'at are what remains of the authorized ahruf that are compatible with the rasm. These are not fresh recitations. Rather, they are the preservation of the ahruf that was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that are then compatible with the Uthmanic Rasm. So, on this form, as Zarkashi mentions, the Qur'an is the revealed speech. The Qira'at is the transmitted differences in how it is worded and how it is recited. So, on this, the Qira'at are actually a mode of a mode. This doesn't mean that the Qira'at are a later invention or human approximations. It means that they are a transmitted classification of recitational forms rooted in the divine concession of the ahruf and bound by the Uthmanic Rasm. Now, just a small point of clarity. When we talk about the Qira'ah of Warsh or Hafs, what we're actually referring to is a riwayah. Hafs and Asim. So this is a riwayah that is going back in a line of transmission back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this qira'ah is actually a transmission of recitation, and that is permitted according to the rasm. Now, it is true that some of the qira'ah have differences, and these differences also carry a difference in meaning. Take for instance Surah Al-Fatiha. One reading has Maliki Yawmiddin, and a master of the Day of Judgment. Another reading has Maliki Yawmiddin, King of the Day of Judgment. Maliki is the reading of Asim, which Hafs transmits, and Maliki is the reading from Nafi', which Warsh transmits. Both are carried by one undotted skeletal text, the bare consonants Mim, Lam, Kaf. We don't pretend that these are the same words. Rather, we say something much stronger. They are authorized modes of one Qur'an. Master and King do not contradict. They enrich by design. Notice what this does to the word complete. When someone recites the Qur'an in the mode of Hafs, they have recited the entire Qur'an, not a portion of it. However, they have not recited every authorized variant of every word. No single reading contains all of them. So, reciting the entire Qur'an, or complete, as in Hafs is the Qur'an in the complete sense, is different and is not the same as exhaustive. Each mode of recitation is the Qur'an. No one mode is all the modes at once. If you confuse these two, you manufacture a contradiction that was never there. Now, a person might ask, what stops someone from inventing a new reading? This is simple. Ibn al-Jazari gives 3 conditions that any qira'ah has to conform to. 1. It must conform to the Arabic language. 2. It must agree with a possible reading of the Uthmanic Rasm. And lastly and most importantly, it must have an authentic chain going back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If a reading does not meet any of these conditions, then it's quite simply not Qur'an. And if a reading does meet these conditions, it's not a matter of preference if it's a part of what is revealed or not. Rather, it is indeed simply the Qur'an. So, the differences are not loose clouds of variance. They are closed, regulated set, bound to one text, gated by chain, language and script. The point is already contained in the classical criteria themselves. A reading must be transmitted, linguistically valid, and bound to the Uthmanic Rasm. So, to return to the theft example, and the layers line up, the several authorized forms of one ruling were the ahruf. One source, more than one single authorized mode. Fixing an official single wording was the Uthmanic Rasm. And the small set of taught voicings of that one wording is the Qira'at, a mode of a mode. Just as an English and American person voice scheduled differently, the Qira'at are the one Rasm read in the ways the Prophet ﷺ taught. In my example, I could authorize a 6th form tomorrow. The readings are not open like that. They're gated and fixed. Okay, so let's look at the argument formally. The Qur'an is the uncreated speech of Allah, bil harf was sawt, revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One speech from one origin. It was revealed in 7 Ahruf, 7 divinely authorized modes of that one speech, each affirmed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as from Allah. At the final review with Jibreel, the authorized recitation was confirmed under Uthman. It was fixed in the Uthmanic Rasm as the standard codices preserve it, which could carry of those modes only what its form allowed. The canonical Qira'at are the soundly transmitted modes of reciting that one fixed text, bound to the Rasm, gated by transmission in Arabic, and traced back to the Prophet's recitation sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They are related to the Ahruf, but not identical to them, a mode of a mode. Each canonical reading is therefore a complete, authorized instance of one Qur'an, not a portion of it, not a rival of it. So, to say Hafs is the Qur'an and Warsh is the Qur'an is to use the is in the instantiation sense. Is a genuine instance of, not identity is the very same thing as. Therefore, there is one Qur'an, one uncreated speech, one ontological origin given in several authorized modes and recited through several authorized modes of recitation, the Qira'at. The objection turns on the equivocation in the word is. The contradiction lies in the argument itself, not in the Qur'an or its authorized modes of recitation. It's worth seeing that this same shape of argument is used against the Christians. In fact, if we are to be direct, the logical problem of the Qur'an is just a copy and paste of the logical problem of the Trinity in an attempt to attack the Qur'an. However, when we put the logical problem of the Qur'an against the logical problem of the Trinity, we find that the two cases are not the same, and they do not stand together. The logical problem of the Trinity runs almost word for word like the logical problem of the Qur'an. The Father is God, the Son is God, the Father is not the Son, so therefore there are three gods. If a Christian answered it in the way that we just did, they would deny that is means strict identity. So the move itself, distinguishing the senses of is principled. It is not special pleading when we make it. However, there is a major problem. The Qur'an and the Trinity are cases apart, and the difference is settled by their creeds, not by us. The structural similarity is real. Both arguments exploit the word is, and the Christian, like us, seeks to distinguish its senses. For the Qur'an, the cleanest reading of that is authorized modes of reciting one thing, is also the orthodox reading. Modes of recitation is exactly the category under discussion, and we're free to use it. However, a Christian cannot solve the Trinity in that way. To say the Father, Son and Spirit are merely modes of one being is modalism, which historic Christian orthodoxy rejects. The creeds insist there are three really distinct deities from one another, not merely names of a mode. That's not an option for Christianity. Now, more sophisticated Christians may attempt to make a different move from is and move to relative identity, constitution, and other such machinery, but they must do so with harder, still contested apparatus. In our case, authorized modes of recitation is exactly the category in play. The clean exit is the orthodox one. In theirs, mere modes is precisely what their creeds forbid. They cannot reach for the modalist version of that resolution. They must secure the unity by far harder means. The same argument, but different ground underneath it. So step back. The logical problem of the Qur'an is not a problem in the Qur'an. It is a problem in one word, is. And that word, is being used in two senses and quietly swapped between them. Name the senses and the argument does not survive. One uncreated speech, several authorized modes of recitation, one source. To recite any one of them is to recite the whole Qur'an, not fragments. This is not a contradiction to be explained away. It is and always has been by design.